What's up, everybody? Larry here. I am simply a comedy fan chatting with and interviewing comedians, and this is Life's a Bit with Larry Mullins. Today's guest has appeared on Letterman, Conan, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and Comedy Central. He is the host of Celebrate on SiriusXM and is also the co-host of the DYM Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sean Donnelly.
Ain't nothing but a heartbreak. Hello?
What's up?
Hi there. What's going on?
Not much. I love the song you were singing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Thank you so much again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. My pleasure.
I just discovered you actually like a month or two ago. I believe your friend Joe List dropped your name.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think so. I heard your name, I want to say, on their podcast, him and Mark's podcast, and you did his Mindful Metal jacket, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, absolutely did. Yeah.
Not to start off like this, but I think you're hilarious.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And I just started recently listening to your podcast.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I got some notes. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. Forgive me.
No, dude. I like your setup there. You got a good background and a good microphone there. That's cool.
Yeah, this is just a blue wall.
But it looks like it's made for like a podcasting studio.
Well, thank you. I just want to start off by asking you some basic general questions. Like, how long have you been doing stand-up comedy?
Total, I've been doing stand-up comedy for 15 years.
Wow.
15 years in June, actually, so a little bit less.
Wow, that's a lot. Like, I guess in certain situations, like, that's not a lot, but 15 years, like, that's...
Yeah, it creeps up on you. It's definitely a good amount of time, man. I did not think that I'd be doing this long. I didn't even think I would get to the point that I'm at in it, whatever point you want to call it.
I was, 15 years ago. I gotta, do the math in my head. I just turned 39.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I don't know. That's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago. Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. I started when I was 28. I'm 42 now.
And I can tell, it's, even, watching or listening to you, I don't know if this sounds crazy, but I can listen to some comics, that aren't, I guess, super, super famous, and I can tell, they've been doing that a while.
Sure.
I can just tell. I can just tell they're, not that I'm a pro or anything, but, I can just hear it by the way it just flows. You can tell they've been working on it a long time.
Yeah, it's for repetition, there's time and time again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that sounds crazy, but...
Not at all. You're totally right. And that's why when somebody has been doing it a really long time, they come off like that. Even if you don't realize it at first, it's like you pick up on the fact that and that sounding like that creeps up on you. Only at certain times do I realize I sound like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's times where I've been like, I've done shows before where, especially with COVID, and then you'll do the Zoom ones. I'll go back into the random live shows I was doing over the summer and then some in the fall. Before you do it, you're like, oh, am I going to be able to do this? Because I haven't done it in so long. And then you get on stage and you're like, oh, I've done this so long. It's like old hat at this point. I'm fine. It's like that kind of thing.
Yeah, one of my actual kind of jumping around because you mentioned the pandemic and stuff. Have you been able to relatively stay working during this?
Yeah, you mean as far as live stand-up goes?
Well, yeah, I know. I know shows are happening. I was wondering, have you been able to do a decent amount of them since all this started, or?
Yeah, so not in February and not as many in January, but before that I was doing a healthy amount in the city, and then I would do a couple of road things in Pennsylvania, and then I was working more than I would have assumed during COVID. Once when the numbers were down in New York over the summer, I was doing a healthy amount of shows. For the circumstances, but my rate of shows has gone down. Is still at that 80% at that point. I was out every night, multiple times a night, pretty much. So that's always going to go down from there. It filled up my life. So Yeah, in relation to what's going on, yeah, I was doing shows here and there. Yeah, definitely, but way less than I was.
Okay, are you enjoying like the outdoor gigs, or have you done any like indoors that are like socially distanced? Or is it
Yes, I've done some indoors that are socially distanced, and then like only a couple of them, and they've been fine, and they're socially distanced. The outdoor ones, it's so funny, and I've said this before, is like outdoor shows were like the enemy of comedy for for years and years and years. But then because of COVID and people were so starving for entertainment,
yeah.
like the importance of outdoor shows and like the attention span of people at outdoor shows completely changed because people just wanted to be at something and laugh and have a good time. So yeah, the ones that I've done over the summer, I love them. They were like the New York Comedy Club was doing all these outdoor shows on rooftops in the city, and they were great. They were absolutely great. But in the past, compared to indoor shows, nobody sided with outdoor. Like nobody was like their preference was being outdoors because you would get people walking up and randomly just standing there, or you get like audiences they'd see a squirrel and they'd get, they'd have the bad attention span. So, or like they'd just be yelling stuff out from the park or whatever it was doing. So it was never an ideal situation. But just for the fact that you were able to get up outdoors over the summer, that became a much more coveted thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I did enjoy the ones I did over the summer. Yeah, I just haven't done many over the winter because it's freezing cold.
Okay, so this might sound like a corny question. I always kind of hesitate this before I ask everybody, but how exactly? Because I've heard in some cases, comics have told me like different things. But how exactly do you personally come up with material? Like, do you sit down and write, or do you see something when you're like out in public, or?
The way I usually do it is I'll come up with an idea in everyday life. I don't sit down. I've never been the one to sit down and just write jokes and I go do them on stage and they work right away. I always get too in my head about that. So normally what it is I'll either say something or see something during the day. And it's trial by fire. So at night I would go do spots, say the thing. If it had some legs to it and got a laugh, I'd keep going from there and write it on stage pretty much. And then I'd try to add something else and then something else and then kind of tweak it. And then whatever works as you're going, So it's more of a comfortability. I need that instantaneous response to tell me that it was something that works for me. So I think I do have ADD. I grew up with ADD. So I think that's part of it. Like, I think me sitting down and focusing and being like, here's a whole paragraph and a page of jokes. It always just a bunch of nonsense to me. But if I have something that I either I jot down or that I see that and say something funny about it, and then I kind of realize that it'd be good for the stage, I'll try it. I'll try it in the next show that I have.
I think I have a mild case of ADD too, possibly. I've never been diagnosed, but like certain things I just can't focus on for a certain amount of time. Yeah,
I'm the same way. I lose interest very quickly.
So I've heard. So do you just kind of like, I guess, memorize it just off of repetition, or I'm sure do you record yourself?
I'll record myself, but I know the way I say things, and then I'll just keep saying it that way every time I go up. That whatever works. So I almost have like a muscle memory on what works, on how you said it, and then you get to the point where you're like, well, what if I add this little thing to it at the end? And if it doesn't, you lose it. If it doesn't work, you lose it, and then if not, you go on to the next thing. So you're trying to. The goal is to make it sound as natural as possible, and the way that I do that is by saying it as natural as I can every time.
Yeah, I kind of hear what you're saying, because like sometimes things can kind of sound rehearsed.
Exactly. Yeah, they just sound too rote, or they sound repeated, or they sound like you're just very awkward. Yeah. No, the goal for me would be not to sound like that at all. Like I'll do crowd work in my act. So the other the other thing that I'll try to do is if I can work it seamlessly after the crowd into crowd work, that would be a goal as well. Like making it sound like it's coming off the top of your head when it's a written bit is like one of the hardest things to do.
I always just like when I'm like watching videos or even like a show live, it blows my mind. I'm like, man, that's so awesome. Like, and seeing like crowd work, I've always wondered like how you got to be quick. You must. I mean, I can't imagine going out there and just like looking at someone and just how do you even do that? Like, is it just
Well, it's one of those things where it works for my personality. I have a lot of opinions about crowd work because the thing that I respect the most out of comedy, which makes sense, it's a no-brainer to say, is writing jokes is the hardest. The crowd work's not as hard as writing jokes. Writing jokes is hands down the hardest thing you do in comedy. Jokes, especially evergreen jokes that work, that span a bunch of time, span audiences, span, whatever you want to call it, or span areas, cities, So that is the real work. I think people try to pretend and say, now there's a talent to crowd work. Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of there is also a science to crowd work. So I always talk about this. I said this on podcasts before, but there's a thing that Patton Oswalt said that's a very easy way to do crowd work is you give them enough rope to hang themselves. So in most normal audiences, if you ask somebody enough questions, they'll almost do the job for you by saying something dumb that you can pounce on right away that you really don't have to be that quick for. Now, I'm talking about regular crowd work when I'm saying this, right? Like regular crowd work.
Yeah.
You have guys like Patrice O'Neill, who died, or people like Big J. Okerson, where I don't consider that crowd work what he does. What he's doing is he's almost doing what Patrice did, where he's perfectly interlaying jokes within talking to the audience. That's way different than crowd work. Crowd work is almost like you're like, I did my act, and then here comes my crowd work part of the thing, and then it can be where it's obviously just a conversation with people, but to get to the level of what a Big J. Okerson is very, very, very hard to do. It's way different than what I'm talking about as far as very mechanical crowd work, and also crowd work can be used a lot in a headlining set to kind of bounce things back because people love crowd work. Not that I have zero respect for crowd work, I'm good at it, but I also know that there's tricks to it. There's definitely tricks to it, but there's no tricks to writing a good, clever joke that works and that is original, that is unique to yourself and that you're happy that you did, and you're not just being a hack about it. You're not just saying the word tits and then people start laughing. An actual joke that is like just perfectly written, and that's the hands down the hardest thing that can happen.
Yeah, so I can see how that could be respected more because that takes time,
Absolutely.
Not that I know, but I mean, I can see how that would. I'm just a fan of stuff. I can't even imagine sitting down and trying to be like, well, how can I come up with something funny? I could see how being like, oh, hey, what does your husband do for a living or something like that. I can see how that could, talking to a crowd could be way easier.
It's way, because people also, they love it when you're making it about them, and I don't blame them, and it can lead to some really fun moments during a show, and that's the whole fun of live comedy. I'm not knocking crowd work. I do it. But I also know, I'll be completely honest, I rely on it sometimes when maybe certain things that I thought were going to work didn't work. So I think we can't lie to ourselves as comics and not say that's a little bit of a safety zone to do crowd work, because you're you can easily bring it back that way, but I do appreciate a lot of it, and I do enjoy a lot of it. But like you said, it's much easier to go, so what's your story? Almost anything anybody says is going to get at least a little bit of pity laugh, and you can build off that. It's very easy to learn the mechanics of crowd work. If you don't mind talking to people, that's the rub there, is that there's a lot of comics that are terrified to talk to the audience. So you have to be okay. So they think it's a way bigger deal to talk to the audience than maybe just reciting jokes. But you can learn that. You can get used to that as a comic.
Okay, so yeah, like when you were mentioning Big J, that just seemed kind of natural, like you said, weaving that into in between the
different
jokes and stuff.
I exclude him from what I just said. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
what he's doing, that's also, he's been doing it 20 some odd years, and he's figured out a way to make it's actually almost the purest form of stand-up what he does, because you don't know it. He's just talking, but there's written stuff within what he's talking. He's bunching it all together and making it one package.
Well, yeah, I don't know, because I've, the few shows I've been to, I'm like, oh, please don't, nobody please pick on me, but you were mentioning with they almost kind of just, everyone's answers are something that somebody could easily rip on. It almost seems.
Almost, yeah. So even if the first one isn't, you ask enough questions, you're going to get them. Most people aren't used to being pointed out or put the spotlight on. So they're going to probably get tripped up. And then there's either stock lines or just random shit you can say to them that will get you a laugh and get you back. But the purpose it should serve is getting you back into your jokes. That's my belief, at least. I'm not saying everybody has to think this way, but what it should be, even if you're using it in a longer set to kind of cushion the silence and get yourself going, it should just be to serve to get it back to you.
Okay.
The idea where it's only where you're going down the line and all you're doing is talking to them, I've never been a fan of that. Where it's all, but I do crowd work. I have nothing against it, but I've never been a fan of guess what? The whole show is about you. I'm going to go down the line and talk to you guys the whole time, every different thing. I've never been a fan of that. But like I said, what Jay does is way different than what I'm talking about, because it's not to sound corny, but it's masterful. It's beyond just the regular, like, what do you do for a living? Like, it's beyond that. It's beyond that.
Yeah. The last show I went to, I'm in Virginia, and have you ever heard of the Arlington Draft House?
Of course.
Yeah. I went there, and I love when, like, the headliner, it's just like jokes and jokes and jokes, and like there might be one or two comments about the crowd, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
What I love personally.
Yeah.
It's not
exactly.
like, because I've seen, I can't name off the top of my head, but I've seen things like on video where it's like 5 minutes straight of just, and I don't know, I guess I'm kind of with you on that one. I'd much rather just... Yeah. Some of it.
I'm a guy who does a decent amount of crowd work, but when I do a longer set, I try to make it as I'm good at it. So I try to do it, but I do it for smaller and smaller portions each show.
Yeah, I brought that up because that's just something I couldn't imagine doing, because like I'd have friends that would just like pick on me and just give me shit just because, and they'd say these, and I'm like, how do you even think of something like that? Like I can't imagine doing that, like that's why I brought it up. That's all.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely.
And it's just, certain things baffle me, and I'm just like watching it, like how can you be quick enough to just be like, oh, I'm going to talk to this person and...
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. It's great I'm a fan, and it's great for a live show because it makes it like a special occurrence for everybody in the room. This will never happen again. We're all sharing this moment, and it's funny, and it's in the moment. That's why it's great. But overall, when it comes to what's difficult about comedy, I don't think it trumps jokes.
Oh yeah, no, I would agree with you totally.
Yeah.
So kind of going back, and this is also a generic question, like, what was there any specific event or that inspired you to start stand up? Was it like just like, hey, everybody tells me I'm funny, I'm just gonna try this, or No,
I was always a huge fan. I used to listen and watch to a lot of stand up with my dad when I was a kid, and I always loved it, and I was always like dying to do it. And there's no one moment that made me want to start it, but the reason I did do it is because I went to an open mic that I never had been to an open mic before.
Yeah,
and it was an open mic, so it was terrible. And it gave me the courage to go up and do it, because I was like, oh, I can be that bad. I can just go up in front of these people and be bad, and I wouldn't feel. I still was nervous as nervous could be, but I could not. I wouldn't feel as bad as I thought I would, like that kind of thing.
That's like me personally, like back in the high school days, I would be in bands and stuff, and I still have stage fright like crazy. Like I have a problem getting up in front of any quantity of people. Like I would hate presenting projects when I was in high school. I'd hate getting up in front of the class. So yeah, I mean, is that like one of those things?
Nobody gets right up on a stage and is fine with it. I don't think. I've never met anybody that was like, I was okay with it the minute I got up there. I think I've never heard those words ever in my life.
So do you just kind of get, like, I guess, a little more comfortable, like the more you do it? It's easier, but do you still get nervous?
Don't get nervous. What you do is, there's a Patrice O'Neill line that before he died, he said, not right before he died, but at some point before he died, he said, not that you're nervous, but you should always be anxious before you go up on stage, like a little bit of butterflies, because the idea of wanting to do well, because the minute that you're not even a little bit anxious, you don't care anymore and you shouldn't be doing it. So I don't get nervous. I get anxious. I want it to go well. It's more that I'm not like, it's a very big difference between I'm not thinking, oh my God, I'm going up in front of all these people. That doesn't faze me anymore. It's 15 years later. I could care less. It doesn't matter. But it's more of the thing of, oh my God, I better do really well in front of these people. That's what it is.
I can't remember who it is though. I heard something similar to that interview, kind of like remaining anxious. It's kind of like motivation in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, your body uses that energy to like do well.
Like, I want to do good. I want to do good. Versus if you go up with like an attitude, like, oh, I'm gonna kill it. Then you end up.
I've been a victim of that. I've gone up and I bombed for 15 minutes because I thought, I'm better than this show. I got this. And I went up and got nothing. This was years ago. And I got nothing. And I learned a lesson that night where I'm like, I'm never going to take any spot for granted ever again.
That's kind of, I relate that to like my band days. Like whenever we were just kids, and like occasionally we'd be cocky, like we'd get lucky and have one gig where we'd do really good and we were like, oh, like, yeah, man, yeah, we kicked ass, and then we had that attitude going to the next one and it was horrible. Like we did horribly and we're like, kind of brought us back down to earth. I was like, no.
It's an overconfidence.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to, and that works. That's a nightly occurrence with stand up, and that's what, if you're self-aware enough, it keeps you balanced and makes you a better comic because you're like, oh, maybe I'm not the shit. Maybe I have some work to do, but then also the good ones keep you going. Like, I'm going to keep doing this. So it's like, it's the universe just pulling you back and forth.
Yeah. That's so. I guess I can kind of compare the two. They're different, but in the sense of like performing for a crowd, and I was just, stage fright, but there was other people up there with me. So it was one of those things, like once I started, I was fine.
Yeah, sure. That's how it goes.
And I kind of wondered if it's the same for stand up. Like once you you get into it, is it kind of like, okay, find your groove or whatever?
It's always anxious before you go up. Then you're on stage. You almost feel more normal than you did when you were off stage.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, sorry if these questions are boring you. It's just this stuff all. It's like I like to pick everyone's brain.
Yeah, whatever you want to ask is fine.
Because I've I don't know. I think the very first like special I saw on TV was like one of Carlin's older ones on HBO, like back in like the '90s, mid to late '90s, maybe.
Yeah.
And I've always liked the bigger comics like him, Seinfeld, stuff like that, and I just because of when I love music, and when I like listening to indie bands or less mainstream bands.
Okay.
And that's how I've become with watching and listening to stand-up comedy too.
Sure.
And no, but I mean, like it's funny, almost everyone I've had on this show is in New York. And it's so
really?
it's so
like
funny.
Yeah.
Like so far I'm loving it. Yeah, like 90% I'd say, and it's just I hear this person say this person's name, so I follow them and watch whatever they have available and listen. I'm like, wow, and I'm falling in love with all these comics, and I was like, this is
great.
I'm like, this is great. So that's why, I'm like, it's just awesome. It's like I felt like I've been living under a rock. Like I'm discovering all this just hilarious stuff,
Yeah.
And
there's a whole scene that you had no idea existed, right?
I know. Like I wish I could come. I wish I could go to New York and go to one of those. Well, I mean, nothing's stopping me, but I'd love to go to one of those outdoor gigs, like on a rooftop or.
Oh, dude, just let me know when you come over this summer, and you can come to New York Comedy Club. I'll get you in.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, no,
yeah, man.
I don't know. I find that I tend to like the New York comics more than anybody else.
Good for you.
I don't. Good for me. I know. I don't.
Yeah, you made the correct choice.
I don't. And I've only had the chance to talk to, I think, one from the West Coast, and not California West Coast, but from Washington, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like every comic I've talked to that's in New York, they've all been super down to earth, super laid back, and just I don't know. I feel like some from watching like interviews and whatever, I feel like some just kind of have like an attitude.
That can happen, yeah.
Kind of like a. I don't know if you know. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you know a lot. You know a lot of people.
I think it might. Yeah, it depends. People, if it might be people treat people, I think it's a case by case basis. You never know. Yeah. You also never know how somebody's day is going. And like some people lash out a little bit differently, and they might be good people, but they had a shitty day or something weird like that. So you never know. But I know what you mean. That does happen. Yeah, it happens in all over show business. Some people are just assholes. That just happens.
Yeah, and I gotta, I've a lesson I'm gonna teach myself is to not take certain things personally.
No, you can't.
Because like I'm just, and I have a friend that's like, we talk often. She's like, I never see you mad. Like she's like, you hear me getting mad like probably a few times a week. And I said, I'm getting older, and like I just, it's too much energy. Like I'm just trying to just stay calm and just even, and
sure.
And then when I was younger, I would like take things personally, but even when I started this, I'm like, and other comics have told me like, hey, you're gonna get no's, you're gonna get instances where the message was read and they never reply to you, and like it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was like, oh, whatever, I just gotta stay busy, and this is also my way to get to know the comic. Like once I start following, it's like I'm still like I'm like a sponge right now. Because
totally.
I rediscovered my love for it like when the pandemic hit. Like I've always liked it, but then I'm just discovering, like I said, all these great comics. I'm like, man, like I wish this comic had this, and this comic should be way bigger than they are, and it's.
That's another thing that happens all the time too. Yeah, the funniest people that we know as comics are never the famous ones.
And it's and I don't, I've said this a few times too, but and it'll kind of go into your show, but I was watching the other day, like Netflix put out that like best stand-up of 2020 thing, and I started it and I didn't even finish it because I'm like, I'd probably say I don't even know how many specials there are on Netflix, but I'd probably say I maybe like 4 or 5 of them. Out of everything on there.
Right.
I don't know if that makes me sound like a snob, but like just a lot of the stuff I end up watching, and then I just kind of watch. I might chuckle a little bit, and then I'm like, yeah, I can't watch this.
Well, I think when it comes to comedy is super subjective, right? So, and the way that it is now, everything is so spread out and there's so many options.
Yeah.
It's not all meant for you. You know what I mean? Like it's not the experiences people are talking about now on stage. There's tons of comedy specials I watch and I'm like, I can't relate to this. Maybe I don't get it or whatever it is. And it's not that I'm like, at first I think I had the reaction like, this is shitty. And then I think I started being like, well, it's actually not for me, and I'm sure there's people that find it funny, and that go. But that's the fun thing about comedy, how subjective and like people have the sense of humor is such a huge spectrum. That's why these things come out like this, because they're like trying to appeal to different fan bases. And so I know what you mean, but I think it's not more that it's not that it's not funny. It's just not funny to you. It's
and I should have said, subjective is an important word like this. That goes for music too. Like subjective,
sure, exactly.
subjective goes for a lot of stuff. But like
absolutely,
I think when I just got back into it and I'm like looking for something good on there, and I'm just like, man, I found a few things. And like back in June, like it all started when was it June? I think it was June. I came across Joe and Mark's podcast, Tuesdays with Stories.
Yeah, totally.
And I check out any comic they mention, literally any name they mention.
Yeah,
I check them out, and 9 times out of 10, I end up loving them.
Oh, that's great.
And that's pretty much, this person follows and that's how I find,
You found your niche. You found what you like, because that's going to be, we're all friends. We all came up the same way in New York. We all, we've done some stuff and we have very similar senses of humor. So it's like, that makes sense that you would dig what they dig,
Yeah. I mean, I love it though. I mean, it's just like, I'm almost like, oh, well, if the chances are, if they're from New York, they're going to be good. At least that's anyways my case anyways.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think the reasoning is because in New York, pre-COVID, we had so many opportunities to get on stage, and like I said, as you get up more and more, you get better and better. You're weeding out The people that don't do it as much, and you fall off. But the guys that do really well are the ones that are going up almost every night of the week. You know.
Yeah, and I like I said, I actually went to Arlington Draft House, I want to say in July, and it was indoors, socially distanced and all that stuff, and it was fun. Other than that, I'd only ever been to like probably maybe 10 years ago. I went to like a Funny Bone in Richmond.
Okay.
And that was like really low ceilings, a really small room, and I've also heard like, hey, that's what you want, like
that's what you want.
20 people laughing.
Put my light on real quick.
All right.
Hold on. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, like 20 people laughing could sound like 50 people laughing.
Yes, that happens. That's why that setup is so perfect for comedy.
And then when I discovered like all these, I'd be just watching videos like, man, I would love to have gone to like New York and gone to all these cool comedy clubs like when they were like open and you could go inside.
Oh, yeah, like the Cellar and all these places.
Yeah, all these famous clubs. I'm like, oh, I'd love to go there.
That's what you want. You want that intimate comedy experience, and that'll be back. That'll definitely be back.
Yeah. There's a lot of it. I know of and there's that the New York Comedy Club. Are there any other clubs like in New York that like host, I guess, like outdoor shows, or is that like one of the main ones? In New York, anyways.
New York Comedy Club is doing a bunch of them. There's a Brooklyn one called Tiny Cupboard that was really great over the summer. And then also Stand Up New York has been doing a lot of park shows. They kind of cornered the market on these central park shows. They were doing like 2 or 3 a night. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw too. You fairly recently, you did Soul Joel's, didn't you?
I did it a couple times. Yeah.
How have you enjoyed that? Because that looks like
that's Soul Joel is like saving road comedy for all the New York comics, because it's a fantastic setup and he's great and the crowds are like comedy crowds. It's fantastic. It's Soul Joel's Comedy Club, and he did it outdoors over the summer with he had like sand, like it was a beach kind of thing,
mm-hmm.
and now he has like a winter dome thing. He has this giant like dome, like it's open on both sides, but it's like a dome with heaters, and he's doing comedy like almost every day of the week. So yeah, I think it's souljoelcomedy.com or whatever it is, but
yeah,
he's fantastic.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. Like, man, I'm gonna have to get up there one time. It's like those big ass heaters. Like, it just looks so cool.
Yeah, go to it's Royersford, Pennsylvania. That's where it's based.
And I wanted to talk to you. Are you still, I don't know, with the pandemic and stuff, but your show on Sirius, are you still doing that?
Yeah, we do it once a week. We do it over Zoom. We record it over Zoom.
Okay.
But I do it once a week. It's every Wednesday at 4 p.m. It's called Celebrate. It's on Raw Dog 99.
Raw Dog 99. Now, how about that specifically? How did you get the show? How did you get the opportunity to do that? Like, how did that come about?
Well, just because of kind of doing a bunch of stuff in comedy, I pitched the idea to the people at Sirius to do a monthly show called Celebrate, where because everything was so shitty, everything was getting so shitty that I was like, well, everything's so negative. Why don't we celebrate one topic a month? As like a fun thing to keep our minds off stuff. And they liked the idea, so I was doing it as a monthly for a couple of years, and then this past year, like last year, was the first year we did it weekly.
Oh, wow. So you've been doing it a while. How long has it been on?
It's been on for a few years in one form or another.
Oh, that's cool.
Probably like 3 years total, I'd say.
So you just pitched it and they're like, that sounds like a good idea?
Yeah, they were into it. Yeah. And my album plays on a couple of networks, so they already knew who I was, so it was just a matter of them being into the idea.
And your album, I'm assuming anybody can just go and download it or buy it wherever you can.
Yeah, you can
buy or stream.
Yeah, you can stream it if you like, but if you want to be an even better friend to me, buy it on iTunes.
Yeah.
It's called Manual Labor Face, so it's on iTunes and then Google Play as well. I think it's on there too if you use that store.
Yeah, it's like I'm one of those people. Like, I have Apple Music, so I like there's a monthly fee, and I can just add stuff to my library. But like when certain kinds, like I will actually go to iTunes and actually purchase the album. Like that's the. Because it's like I can, great. Yeah, it's like when a band puts out a new album, I can just go and add to my library. But you can also go to iTunes and actually pay for it. So in some cases, I will actually pay for it because I know it actually helps
Oh, that's perfect.
And I like I like supporting, I don't want to sound like a savior or anything, but it's like certain certain comments of like, oh, I'll actually buy their album because I know how important it is and I know how much it means. And
yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's the way to do it. You're helping comedy by doing that, and music as well.
so when you in Sirius, I'm assuming you started like in the studio. You were doing it in the studio for the long. So when did you move over to Zoom? Was it right when it started or shortly after?
Yeah, it was shortly into when it started. It was pretty quick. We did it over Zoom. Yeah, I think I'm sure our last one was because at that point it was weekly at that point. So yeah, we started going like not even a month into when all this started happening. So yeah, I would say a couple weeks in, they were like, "We're gonna have you do it from home."
Now you're you ever have this times where like your brain just shuts down when you're in mid thought?
Absolutely.
Does that
brain fart?
And there's like notes right there. Your podcast, the DYM Podcast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Seinfeld references.
Absolutely.
And I know you love movies, and I love both. And my friend and I recently rewatched Seinfeld from beginning to end.
Oh, nice.
Like the whole show, and we're watching it over again because, like, telling me growing up, like, I remember seeing the final season on TV as it was airing. I was in high school, and certain references, like certain parts throughout the series, like the ugly baby, like the Hamptons and the pig man, and certain things I remember, but I'm like trying to jog my memory, and I wanted to ask you, like, what would you? This may be kind of hard, but what would you say your favorite season would be out of all of them?
It's gotta be. I was talking to Mark and Joe about this, and I think we decided like 3, 4, and 5. I think it was 3, 4, and 5 are 3 of the best seasons. I would say I have to look at the episode list just to refresh my memory because I just watch them, and I like other shows are way easier to like know what season they're from, but with Seinfeld, I'd have to look at what it is. But I think I remember thinking season 4 was my favorite season.
Season 4 is really good. Yeah, I it's like even now it's still fresh. Like we're like doing our second watch through. We're in like season 3, I believe. But I know like what some of my favorite episodes are. Like I think it'd be easier for me to name episodes. Like so, some of my favorites are like, of course, I think it's in season 5. It's called The Briss with the Moyle, and that's the Pigman one.
I think we talked about this on my podcast. The best one episode character is the Moyle. The Moyle is hands down the best one and done character on. So he's amazing. That guy, he's amazing. And look him up on like Wikipedia or whatever. He died in like a really weird way.
Really?
He was found in like a hole in the desert or something weird like that.
Oh,
the actor, not the Moyle.
Yeah. So somebody probably put him in the desert. That sounds like some.
No, I don't know if it was that or if he got like trapped and then he tried to get out of his car or something. I don't know the whole story, but it very well could have been a mafia, a casino situation, and out in the Las Vegas desert, and the mafia got him or something, you know?
Yeah, and it's another that's Seinfeld's one of those shows like I laugh at literally every single episode, and like some like I'm not a big fan of the pilot. That's but
well, the first year is not great.
Yeah,
early Seinfeld, we've said that before too, is not the best. But the more you keep going, it's the best show in the world. It's fantastic.
And I just the little like I would pick up on. That's why I want to keep continuing to watch it because like I said, the big moments I can remember, like shrinkage, and for some reason I remember the pig man and. My name is George, I'm unemployed, I live with my parents, and there's certain things like, but I want to get it to where like I can pick up on every single reference.
I would say my favorite one of my favorite stretch of episodes is the Crazy Joe Davola arc when they're doing the pilot and anything with Crazy Joe Davola I love it.
Yeah, he's funny, and I especially loved when the Jerry had started dating this new fairly attractive woman, and he finds out that she dated Newman.
That's a great one too.
And he's like, and Newman's like, she wasn't my type. He's like, you dated Newman?
And he goes, Newman rejected her. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I just, that's how my friend and I are. Like, we're constantly, because before we started watching it again the first time, I'd hear certain quotes and I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't know? I'm like, it's been a long time. Like, I'll watch it when it's on TV, and it depends on what episode's on TV, and
right, sure.
so we just decided to watch the whole thing, and to the point where I'm probably, jokingly gonna buy like an actual like Festivus pole next year. And
nice.
Just
yeah, I signed up for this box, this Culture Fly box, or whatever it's called, Cultures, where they send me. Oh, I can tell you, the guy I do the podcast with, my friend Andy, he gave me this as either a Christmas gift or a birthday gift one time. That's
I love it.
The Ass Man license plate, and then this box gives you a bunch of stuff. I'll show you one of the things. Hold on. Oh, wait. I got this. Oh, shit. My chair is on my headphone cord. So they give you this kind of stuff in the box.
Oh, that's awesome.
They give you a Fusilli Jerry. And they give you a bunch of other stuff. Some stuff I put out and some stuff I gave away and got rid of. But yeah, I forget what it's called. Like, yeah, Culture Fly. That's what it's called, Culture Fly. But it's great because it's all this little cool knickknacks that are Seinfeld based.
And it's crazy because I've always loved it, but I'm like just getting back into it, and like the little things, like for my birthday, the same friend got me a Vandalay Industries t-shirt, and
nice.
And it's just little things. Like I'd always be like, I'd point out after he did Fusilli Jerry in Kramer's apartment, he had all the noodle people, like all 4 people, kind of like behind his couch.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, did you see it? And she kept messing. I'm like, no, the noodle people, like, look, they're right behind his couch. And it's so, I love being able to.
They sell a replica, an apartment replica that pops up on my internet all the time, on my streaming, as I flip through stuff on like Facebook and Instagram. And I always want to get it, but it's too expensive. They got it down to like $350.
It's a mini replica.
Yeah,
I saw it on Amazon.
Yeah. Oh, did you? How much was it? You remember?
It's like $350.
Yeah, $350. Yeah, and I would love to get that, but I'm not spending $350.
Yeah, no.
I would get that in a second. I put it right up here on my thing here.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up now. I know you're a busy man.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, you got it, man.
And I really appreciate you doing this.
No sweat. Thanks for having me, dude.
Before we officially end this, let me look at the calendar here. This will be out on Friday the 26th. So if you date wise, do you have anything involving a date at all?
Not a date, no. It's all just general stuff, just the radio show and the podcast for right now. And then as time goes on, I have more stuff coming up, but nothing around then.
Alrighty, well, thanks again. It was nice talking to you. Great to meet you virtually.
Yeah, man. Great to meet you, dude.
All right, thanks again.
Have a good one. Talk to you later.
All right, you too. That concludes this week's episode of Life Save It with Larry Mullins. Please follow the podcast on all social media at Life Save It Pod. If you are listening, please follow, rate, subscribe, and write a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to tell your friends. And while you're at it, please follow Sean Donnelly on all social media at SeanyTime. That's at SeanyTime. And while you're at it, check out the DYM Podcast, and also hit up his official website, SeanDonnellyComedy.com. Again, thanks so much for the support, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.